lives. Do stay with us, we'll be right back.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can. You are watching the press preview, a first look at what's on the front pages as they arrive. In the next half hour, we'll see what's making the headlines with the political commentator, Tim Montgomery, and the FT's deputy opinion editor, Miranda Green. So let's see what's on some of those front pages for you now. Well, The Guardian reports that Swiss investigators believe sparklers in bottles started the fire at the bar in Crans-Montana. The Mail understands that one of the people missing after the disaster is 15-year-old Charlotte Nidam, who previously attended schools in the UK. An image of Charlotte Nidam dominates the front of the Times, which says she hasn't been heard from since the disaster. Reporting on Charlotte and several other missing teenagers, the Mirror's headline is just one word: heartbreaking. The Eye reports that passport biometrics gate checks on British travellers arriving in Portugal are being suspended because of long queues. Concerns about people being left in limbo by Britain's social care system are the main focus for the Express. The Star claims heavyweight boxer Anthony Joshua swapped seats shortly before the fatal collision in Nigeria, which killed 2 of his friends. The Telegraph reports Iranian security forces opened fire on protesters, despite a threat from President Trump to intervene as the unrest spreads across the country. The Chinese electric car maker BYD is now the biggest in the world, having overtaken Tesla. That's according to the Financial Times. We're joined tonight by Tim Montgomery and Miranda Green. Welcome to you both. We're starting with this awful story coming out of Switzerland at the Constellation Lounge Bar in Crans-Montana, the ski resort there, and the missing teens. The Mirror front page, heartbreaking, is the single headline, Tim.
Well, I tend to avoid stories like this, to be honest. I'm a bit of a wimp with this, and I haven't read, I really have turned away. But all I think you have to do is look at these photographs of these young faces. You know, they are so young to me. And to think of these extraordinary lives full of hope and excitement on New Year's Eve, you know, cut short, and the horror of being trapped in that cellar. You know, the authorities are saying it's going to be hard to quickly recognise a lot of these people because of the intensity of the blaze, and absolutely heartbreaking. It really is the worst possible start to the year, and a surprise from Switzerland, because it's a country which is, you know, we associate with being so ordered, and many people watching now, British tourists, have been there, and it's a very well-run country, but these images of, you know, sparklers in the top of champagne bottles, it does, you know, in retrospect, seem to be a disaster waiting to happen. And my goodness, what a disaster.
Yeah, and that is the theory that they're working on, that the sparklers were held far too close to the ceiling, and the material that the ceiling was made from was highly flammable.
Yeah, I mean, the whole picture is a nightmare, isn't it? And it was clearly a living nightmare on the night. And as Tim says, the faces are heartbreaking, actually. It's the right word that the Daily Mirror has chosen, I think, for their front page, because it's these lives cut short in such a horrendous way. I mean, lots of the front pages, as you said, do refer to the story in some way, because the scale, actually, of the loss of life as well. You know, it would be a tragedy even if it had been on a smaller scale, but, you know, way more than 100 seriously injured, more than 40 dead at the moment. You know, that could rise. So it's an appalling story to start the year, I agree. It is very upsetting. It's very upsetting. And, you know, clearly the UK papers are focusing on those kids who are missing, who've got some link to the UK. But, you know, the Swiss children, the French children, the Italian children, and all those families coming into that town to try and look for their missing young people. It's horrific.
And as you say, Tim, a horrendous way to start the new year. Just a really, really awful story. We must remember those still in hospital. The average age, I think they said, was 20, so all extremely young.
Scores of them, I mean, really, yeah.
Imagine being the medical personnel having to, you know, deal with all of this. But we've made such progress as a society in dealing with burns injuries. You know, people who used to be scarred for life, they can now, you know, be repaired to some extent. But it's not easy surgery, and the mental scars never go away. And there'll be siblings who survive who've lost their, you know, brother or sister. It's going to be very tough for the survivors as well as those who died. I know someone who died recently, well, a few years ago, in a well-publicised accident, and actually the consequences for that family in terms of You know, the people that survived, the mental anguish, have gone on for years and years of this. This is only the beginning of a terrible chapter for so many people.
Our reporter at the scene was saying that many of the medical staff were really affected by this because they didn't know if their own children would be coming into the hospital needing treatment.
Imagine seeing your own kids.
And with burns in particular, the average stay is 6 to 9 months. So, you know, this is just the beginning of healing for those that are in hospital. Really, really difficult situation for those involved and the families, as you say. Let's move on, shall we, to the Telegraph. And Donald Trump in the headlines yet again. He's threatening Iran that he will step in and intervene if they harm their own protesters. Miranda.
Yes, so obviously President Trump is never shy of intervening verbally, but whether he then follows that up with action of a military nature or even, you know, very hard diplomacy is often a different story. But clearly we've got the president reacting to very, very worrying violence on the streets of Iran, and not just Tehran. This is what's interesting about these protests. They have spread right across the country, and there is violent crackdown right across the country as well. And so the loss of life is outside the city, outside the main cities, even in small towns. And the reason is because these protests started because of the economic hardship in Iran, part of which is obviously to do with things like Western sanctions, but also because it doesn't really have a functioning economy. And interestingly, it started with shopkeepers. And it's built into a much wider protest against the regime, you know, cries from the street of "down with the dictator." Isn't that extraordinary about the supreme leader of the theocracy that runs Iran? So the question, obviously, in everyone's mind is, will this build into something that really does threaten the survival of the Islamic Revolution in Iran? Will Trump get involved? It's not that long, 6-7 months since Israel launched that surprise bombing raid on Iran's nuclear programme, and then President Trump was sort of forced to come in behind Israel and support the Israeli military action. The stakes are really, really high in this region, and everybody's watching this story very, very carefully across the world.
But meanwhile, Tim, Iran are warning the US against intervention, that will be met with some force.
Well, I'm really going to praise Trump on this. I think he's made lots of foreign policy mistakes, but in how he's dealt with Iran, this for me is sort of classic Ronald Reagan. What Ronald Reagan did in the 1980s when faced with the Soviet Union was he escalated America's investment in military technology and basically forced Moscow to try and keep up, but basically at the cost of looking after their domestic population. And it forced the Soviet leader, then Gorbachev, to the negotiating table. What Trump has done in ripping up the Obama policy on Iran, the European policy, which was to basically do a deal with Iran, but also lubricate their economy. What we did was we said, if you allow us to inspect your nuclear facilities, we will help your economy grow. And it allowed Iran to basically carry on exporting terror around the world, but also have enough money to pacify their domestic population. Trump has done the Reagan thing and forced the Iranian regime to confront the difficult choices of either looking after their domestic population or carry on their terrorism. And then, of course, as Miranda said a little while ago, we had the attack on Iran's nuclear facilities. But at that time, Trump actually distanced himself from Israel and said, one attack's enough. And he communicated then, actually, Iran need not be America's long-term enemy. And so we don't really know what's happening in Iran. I'm surprised, actually. The Swiss story is enormous. But this is the biggest thing happening in the world at the moment. And if these people who've been under the rule of the most horrible fascistic religious regime are finally breaking free.
Well, it's a murderous regime as well.
Oh, extraordinary.
The way that the Iranian population is actually treated by the regime. You know, Iran inside its prisons, in terms of the death penalty, it has the worst record of anywhere in the world. So this is a really unpleasant place to live.
But very quickly, because we're running out of time, do you think that Trump will act on his words, on his threat?
I think it's really too soon to know what's going on, as Tim said, partly because there is no functional opposition in waiting, active either inside or outside Iran. And that makes it extremely difficult for any other power trying to kind of engineer a regime change. But it's up to the people of Iran themselves, really, whether they decide this is the moment.
And also, of course, Syria fell in the last year, partly because Russia invested in Ukraine, couldn't support the Assad regime. And that's what's happening now. Iran is Russia's other big client state. And Russia is so committed to Ukraine, they can't support Tehran. So if it's a marginal thing, whether this regime survives, it may be that Putin, for his investment in Ukraine, has actually lost Syria and Iran, which will serve him right. It really will.
The domino effect.
It really is.
Yeah. One piece moves and the whole puzzle changes shape. Very quickly, I think we've got about a
Sorry,
minute.
we're talking too much.
No, you can never talk too much on this show. Very quickly, the FTSE hits 10,000 for the first time, Miranda.
So it's interesting, this, because, it was an incredibly good day for London, for the markets. And, there's this big speculation about whether tech stocks are overvalued, and that seems to be sending investors away from the US market and maybe investing in London and investing in Europe a bit more, which actually should be quite an encouraging sign for us. We've obviously all been quite gloomy about the economic prospects here in the UK, but this is a bit of a sort of sign of at least some faith that the London market has something to offer and that businesses based here have something to offer investors, and that's good.
Richard, the Chancellor has been quick to grab onto the FTSE 100 breaking through 10,000 points for the first time is a vote of confidence in Britain's economy and a strong start to 2026.
And, of course, we had Mandani, is that the right pronunciation? Yes. Well, yesterday proclaiming a socialist super-state in New York. Well, that's an opportunity, actually, for London. If this government had the nous, we would say, OK, if you're worried about that guy, we're a more sensible place for you to invest. So, opportunity for London.
There's also much more sort of traditional stocks here in London, so it's banking and mining and that sort of thing, sort of safer investments. We're not in London quite so much in hock to AI and the tech stocks that are
not yet.
Yes, not yet. I think
well,
you're
they're
right.
not listed here. So.
No.
OK, Tim and Miranda, thank you very much for the moment. Going to take a break. Coming up, an overtake of a different kind. BYD surpasses Tesla as the world's biggest electric car company. That and more when we come back. Do stay with us.
Those vivid colours of summer have faded now, but the trauma for everyone who witnessed what happened here hasn't gone away.
Devastation that we lost 3 of them.
Ruda Cabana's guilty pleas mean they won't have to relive what they saw in court, but everyone here tells you they'll carry it for the rest of their lives. You see people running red lights time after time after time. This is an offence that sometimes has the most awful of consequences.
When you speed through a pedestrian crossing, there is a risk that you could batter somebody to death. She filled our lives with light. She was innocent, she was happy.
I'm Greg Milam and I'm Sky's Chief North of England correspondent.
He had a beautiful death. He fell asleep in my arms. This is about a dying person's choice to die peacefully when they want to, on their terms.
Go ahead, back white jacket.
Deborah Haynes from Sky News. He called you Daddy earlier.
No, he did it very affectionate. Daddy, you're my daddy. Thank you.
Leicester is on its knees.
They've ripped the soul out of my factory and there's nothing left.
It is eerily quiet.
It's constantly on the brink of capacity.
There's overcrowding. It's not a new thing.
It's rough.
There's nothing to hide. Why aren't international journalists allowed in?
Are you worried about escalation?
Of course I'm worried about escalation, which is why my focus is on de-escalation.
The region, I think, is on edge because they are anticipating a retaliation.
Iran retaliates for the US attacks.
Founding principle of the alliance,
that an attack on one is an attack on all.
Could Putin attack another NATO country within 5 years?
What's the best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
Who's funnier?
Being a Sky News journalist.
A special edition of The World with me, Yalda Hakim.
Pakistan has a right to respond.
You're like, what?
Historic day here today.
Congratulations, this is a huge moment.
But what happens now?
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'll take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
What's the best thing about being a Sky News presenter?
We've done the work and the reading, so you don't have to.
Being a Sky News presenter.
Hello and welcome. Westminster, the heart of British politics.
I'm so sorry about what happened to you.
So what on earth is going on?
It's not true.
Can I tell you what I think?
It's really unusual.
Mornings with Rich and Frost. Let's crack on. Let's get started.
Welcome back. You are watching the press previews. Still with me, Tim Montgomery and Miranda Green. Let's take a look at the FT front page. First story there. Tesla loses crown to China's BYD. Tesla has lost its crown as the biggest electric car maker to China's BYD after recording a consecutive second year of declining sales in 2025.
Well, do you remember when Elon Musk was recruited by Donald Trump into the US administration? And there was a kind of spate of people saying, right, let's boycott Tesla. And actually, funnily enough, this has turned out to be not a great, year end for Elon Musk commercially in that part of his business empire. And
it is partly because of his stint in the White House.
It is. And in fact, the story says, a consumer backlash over his political activities. And of course, he's become more and more and more outspoken politically, even once he's been out of the administration, hasn't he? So there's partly that, and also just the absolutely inexorable rise of China. When China decides to dominate in a manufacturing sector, they've got the most incredible infrastructure and they move really, really fast. And BYD is up, 20-something% in 1 year. And they're making
28%.
And they're making more affordable EVs, of course. So they've been able to push into Europe, into other markets, whereas Teslas are a, premium product, aren't they? Not something that I'll ever be to drive, I don't think, not now.
Well, look,
so it's interesting, isn't it? Because it's a sort of one in the eye for Musk's kind of prestige as a preeminent businessman internationally, really.
But it's also to do with the cancellation of US tax credits for EV owners, isn't it?
Yeah, well, we're in a mess on electric car policy. We don't really know what we're doing. And there are different regimes within Europe, between Europe and America. But, China set themselves these big goals. And, of course, we all want to poke Musk in the eye. All of us probably do. But actually...
Speak for yourself. You are speaking for yourself.
Do we... The real fear, this is what should really worry us, is, the German car industry is petrified now about basically being forced into extinction by, what Miranda says, China's ability to mass-produce electric cars just at a much cheaper rate than we can compete with. And, we should be hoping for any of us who really care about there being competition, being choice, that actually Musk does survive. Perhaps he needs to rein in his Twitter comments and all the rest of it, but we need a European and American counterweight to China on all sorts of issues. And one of the problems with the electric car industry is it's the minerals that have to be excavated to produce these batteries and things. China already has, quite a monopoly on that. So we should worry about this, because living in a future where China dominates is not a happy everyone. What China has done to client states in Africa, they start, kindly, and then the interest rates they charge, the conditions, they are not a good, partner in business, and that's the underlying issue that this story represents.
But actually, Tesla also has moved away from this kind of focus of its business and has gone heavily into autonomous vehicles, AI, robotics, this kind of thing. So it's maybe taken its eye off the ball a bit as well.
Yeah.
Very quickly, I think we've got about a minute on David Lammy wanting to enrol teenagers as well.
Do we have to talk about David Lammy?
Well, we can talk about the Justice
Prime Minister.
He is, as he keeps telling everyone, apparently.
But a good idea to get the numbers up, to increase the number of magistrates, to cut the backlog in the courts.
Well, there is a genuine courts crisis, so we've got to find magistrates from somewhere, so we probably better all get involved. But also, there is a strange way in which young people and young adults are not really included in our infrastructure. The only thing we're all obliged to do occasionally is jury service. Maybe actually other ways in us all getting involved in the criminal justice system aren't a dreadful idea. It comes out as a gimmick in this story, but who knows?
Tim, would you be a magistrate? You've got 10 seconds.
Yeah, I'd like to be. Some people might fear me being a magistrate.
Not before the beak.
Exactly.
Tim and Miranda, thank you so much for the moment. See you in the 11 o'clock hour. Let's take a look at the weather for you now.
You're looking happy.
Well, the forecast looks good.
So you've sorted the travel insurance then?
All Clear Travel Insurance sponsors Sky News Weather. Well, the strong northerly flow will continue to bring cold weather and wintry hazards over the weekend and into next week. There's an amber warning in place for northern and eastern Scotland, where heavy and frequent snow showers will deliver significant new snowfall, along with blizzard conditions and drifting snow. Travel may be compromised and power outages are likely. A more widespread yellow warning for snow showers and ice covers much of Scotland, Northern Ireland and North Sea coasts. All Clear Travel Insurance proudly sponsors Sky News Weather.
Coming up next on Sky News at 11, tributes to those who lost their lives in the Swiss bar fire, as details about some of the missing begin to emerge.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist?
They call him the king of the jungle.
Being a Sky News journalist.
Yusra Al-Baghir has this report.
And this is what's left of it.
As a woman of colour, how did the Harris campaign speak to you?
People risk their lives to speak to us for this report.
Mr. Zuma, Sky News.
We're trying to see as much as we can.
The best thing about being a Sky News journalist? I'll take you behind the scenes here for Election Night Live. They have gone up and up. Being a Sky News journalist. Ed Conway, Sky News, is anyone going to talk to us? Mortgage rates did go up very sharply during your time in office. Here it is. First off, just the scale of what we're looking at. Our data shows it's been happening. Question is, why it hasn't been stopped.
This is Sky News at 11 o'clock. The headlines this evening. Swiss officials say sparklers on champagne bottles likely caused the deadly New Year's ski resort fire, which killed 40 people and injured 119. The first victim is named as an Italian teenager remembered for his love of life and golf. Amongst the missing, a former pupil at a school in Hertfordshire, Charlotte Nadan, Arthur Brodard, aged 16, from Switzerland, and Alice Kalagis, a 15-year-old Swiss Greek national. Also tonight, Donald Trump threatens to intervene if Iran kills peaceful protesters, saying the US will rescue them. The NHS rolls out a chickenpox vaccine for the very first time. And weather warnings for snow and ice, with a bitter cold snap sweeping across the country this weekend. And we'll have a full look at the front pages in our press preview at 11:30. Good evening. Swiss investigators say sparklers in champagne bottles likely started the fatal New Year's fire at a bar